Christ our Lord. Amen. There is power in words. In the darkest hours of England's history, when the Nazis were at the brink of victory, Prime Minister Winston Churchill saved England with his words. In our own history, Patrick Henry ignited the American Revolution with his words, "Give me liberty or give me death." President Franklin Delano Roosevelt inspired the nation caught in the throes of the Great Depression with the words, "There is nothing to fear but fear itself." There is power in words. Peter encouraged Christians to face the threat of persecution courageously with the words, "You are chosen, destined, and sanctified." Words have power. You can tell yourself, "Oh, I am dumb, or helpless, hopeless, old, or a victim of circumstances." Or you can tell yourself, "I am chosen, destined, and sanctified." There is power in words. A church can tell itself, "Oh, we're small, weak, unable to do much." After I graduated from seminary, I was appointed pastor of 4 churches back in Minnesota. 3 of them had memberships under 25. They thought they were small, but I wouldn't let them act small. I preached a sermon, "When is a church small?" Making the point that a church of any size is small when it thinks small. And when it thinks it's weak and powerless. And a church is big, significant, vital, dynamic, growing when it catches the vision of Peter's words, "You are a chosen race, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, God's own people." And that's who we are. That's who we are. We're not just a group of people who like each other. We're not just a social group who gather together for dinners. We're not just a United Methodist church. We are a chosen race, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, God's own people. Peter reached back into the Old Testament and pulled those powerful words that had been addressed to the nation of Israel and now applied those same powerful words to small, scraggly, politically powerless churches made up of slaves and women. Imagine, God said, "I choose you. You are my chosen people. You are my special people. You are now my priests. I want you to intercede on behalf of people. I want you to do my work. I want you to be my own special people." Now, not that all people aren't God's people, but we who are in the church are special. God's personal property. God's reserved domain. A people God wants for himself. God's own people, set apart, sanctified, to do special work. To do what? What is the special work? Verses 9 and 10 of chapter 2, "In order that you may proclaim the mighty acts of him who calls you out of darkness into his marvelous light." Once you were nothing, once you were lost and staggering about, looking for purpose, searching for meaning, wondering where you belong and where you fit, now we know who we are. Now we know where we belong. Now we know what we are to be doing. We are God's own people, and we are called to do God's work. Now, how can you tell God's people them some time to understand that the balloons were to be stomped. And then they played the game differently. They helped each other. One girl held her balloon and let a boy stomp. And then the boy did the same thing for her, until there was not one balloon left. They were all burst. And then the entire class cheered in unison. No losers. No losers. Everyone was a winner. They practiced generosity, trust, cooperation, gentleness, and concern for one another. How can you tell if a church is made up of God's own people? Clarence Jordan visited a church in the Deep South. He was surprised to find a vital, dynamic, growing, integrated church. Not only of black and white people, but rich and poor, all in the same church. And he said to the hillbilly preacher, he said, "How did this come about?" "Well," said the preacher, "our preacher left our small church, and I said to the deacons, I'll be the preacher. So the first Sunday, as preacher, he says, I opened the book and I read. As many of you as has been baptized into Jesus has put on Jesus. And there's no longer any Jews or Greeks, slaves or free, males or females, because you is all one in Jesus." Then he says, I closed the book, and I said, if you won with Jesus, you won with all kinds of folks. And if you ain't, you ain't. Well, Jordan asked him what happened. He said, the deacons called me into the back room. And they told me they didn't want to hear any more preaching like that. So Jordan said, well, what did you do? And the preacher roared. He said, I fired them deacons. He says, I preached that church down to 4. Down to 4 people. Then he said, then it began to grow. And that church grew and grew and grew. And he said, and I found out that revival sometimes doesn't mean bringing people in, but getting people out that don't love Jesus. How can you tell if a church is made up of God's own people? There was a woman whose life had been one tragic loss after another. She was now a lonely widow, rejected by her remaining son. She struggled against the pain of a debilitating disease, yet she made it to church every Sunday. She lived in a little converted garage. She wore the same shoes and the same dress to church, week after week, year after year. Yet, when there was a special need presented, hers was the first gift to be received. Besides that, she made one of the largest annual pledges in the congregation. And when the church launched a building campaign, her pledge was the first to be received, and the pastor could not believe the amount she had pledged. And he decided he would go visit with her because he was really afraid that she had overextended herself. But she said, every morning I sit at this little table and I sing, holy, holy, holy. And then I ask God, she says, to help me live from the heart and to do what the heart tells me to do. She says, I have done that for many years, and although I have lost much and had to relinquish loved ones, my health, my home, and most of my possessions, the church is made up of God's own people. Charles Colson tells of visiting a prison in Brazil. Maybe they sing that song that the choir sang. And this prison was turned over to two Christians 20 years ago. They call it Humanita, and they run the prison on Christian principles. The prison has only 2 full-time staff, paid staff, and all the rest of the work is done by the inmates. Every prisoner is assigned another inmate to whom he is accountable. In addition, every prisoner is assigned a volunteer family from the outside that works with him during his term and after his release. Every prisoner joins a chapel program or else takes a course in character formation. Colson found the inmates smiling. He saw men at peace. He saw clean living areas, people working industriously. The walls were decorated, not with graffiti, but with biblical sayings. And Humanita has an astonishing record. Only 4% of its prisoners return. 4% compared to 75% in Brazil and in the United States. Well, Colson wondered how it was possible. And he saw the answer when his guide escorted him to the notorious punishment cell once used for torture. And the cell now held only 1 inmate. And as the guide put the key into the lock, he asked Colson, "Are you sure you want to go in?" "Of course," said Colson. So slowly the guide opened the massive door, and Colson saw the prisoner in the punishment cell. A crucifix, beautifully carved by the inmates. The prisoner Jesus hanging on the cross. And the guide softly said, "He's doing time for all the rest of us. He's doing the time." Isn't it amazing what God can do? Isn't it amazing what God can do with us? Amen. When we become God's own people? God can even take prisons and transform them into churches. I've seen some churches that have been transformed into prisons. God can take prisons and transform them into churches. If they ever ask me to design questions for the district superintendent to ask at the annual church conference, I would have the district superintendent ask, "What miracles have happened this past year? What miracles?" And regarding our congregation, I would tell him, we are a church of miracles. We are a church of God's own people where the sick are healed here. Where Susan's tumor is removed, is gone. We are a church of God's own people who take care of one another, who look out after one another, who help each other break our balloons. So there are no losers, where everyone is a winner. We are a church of God's own people who love Jesus and are one with all kinds of folks. We are a church of God's own people who live from the heart and who give from the heart. We are a church who took a patio where the sidewalk was buckled and transformed it into a work of art where people fellowship and children play. We are a church of God's own people who are constantly expanding. We're building a new building, expanding our facilities so we may better serve God. We open our hearts and our doors to children and to people who need to know they too belong to Jesus. Our arms encompass the world as we give to missions through our conference apportionments and our